We have Diane and Connie going to do a talk or play this morning. What I'd like to start with, one of the first times, is I'd like to greet Mayor Pro Tem John Sharkey, Councilman Tom Figg, and Councilman Jim Hensley.
Jim Hensley, right here.
Thank you, Jim. I'd like to say a few things, because usually I just kind of wing it. An ancient people who have faith in one God, a people who have survived the Egyptian captivity, Babylonian wars, the Hittites, the Persians, Roman rule, Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain, the Tsars of Russia, the Ottomans, the Holocaust of World War II, War of Independence, numerous wars with Egypt, Iraq, Syria, the Arab League. This tribe of people and religion have survived and will continue to survive. October being Yom Kippur, a holy month for Jews, the City of Hueneme Museum recognizes that. Next year we will have 2 Jewish programs, one the first Sunday of October and the second, the last Sunday of October. Thanks to Tom Figg recognizing that in the city we recognize other holidays, peoples, and faiths, and he asked, why not the Jewish faith? Hearing that, I asked my friends, Dr. Mark Fleischman and Judy Fleischman, for help finding someone to speak a little on Jewish history of Ventura County. Judy has helped find Diane Mulder and Connie Korenstein. Both Diane and Connie are retired educators and involved in many community activities. Before I start, I would ask each of you to think about this. What subject of Jewish history would you be interested in? After the presentation, I would ask you to see my friend Judy Fleischman or me about what that would be. That will help give me a direction to seek speakers on that subject. So now I'll turn it over to you.
Hello. Today, a visitor from the past has come to tell us of her life with her husband, Ashiel Levy. Lucy and Ashiel were among the early pioneers of Port Hueneme and Oxnard, and he is known for establishing the Bank of A. Levy, one of the county's first financial institutions. Lucy has brought along her friend, Minnie Cone, another early pioneer, whose husband, Simon Cone, made important contributions to the development of the town of El Rio. Both Ashiel Levy and Simon Cone came to Ventura County in the 1870s. Lucy and Minnie will share their memories and photos of the early days.
Well, good morning, and thank you for inviting us to your meeting today. Can everyone hear us? Hear me? Yes? Okay, so I'm not a 21st century lady, so you know these electronic things are a little beyond me. Okay. Oh, my goodness. Well, Minnie and I were just talking about the old days, and I was sharing her some of my photograph albums and some of my stories from the old days. And so we decided to bring them with us today to share some stories and some photos with you.
Well, I know you all must be wondering why we are dressed in these old-fashioned outfits instead of something more modern. Well, just the other day, I was asking Lucy about how she first came to this country, and we decided to dig into our closets and show you what we wore in 1882. I'm delighted to say these outfits still fit us.
We think it'll help from the dressmaker.
Voila. Lucy, tell us how you first came to this country.
Well, first I'd like to tell you a little bit about my husband, Ashiel, because you know he is the one who brought me to this country. Well, Alsace region of France, which is on the border of France and Germany. He had a very bright future. He was well educated, and everything was looking wonderful for him until Alsace was taken over by Germany during the Franco-Prussian War. Oh, Achille told me how terrible life became for him then when the French flag was taken down. Oh, and replaced by the flag of Prussia. Now, I have a letter here that he wrote to his uncle Isidore. Here, you would like to read it?
Certainly. It says, "Dear Uncle Isidore, you would not believe how life has changed since the Germans have taken over. They are insisting that we are all German citizens now. We are not allowed to even speak French. The German secret police are always on the lookout for any activity they consider not loyal to Germany. All men my age must register in the military or go to prison. I cannot live this way. Your nephew, Abraham Achille Levy."
Achille and about 300,000 of his neighbors and countrymen were forced to leave their homeland.
How old was he then?
Oh, it was 1871, and Achille was only 19. He made his way all the way to San Francisco, where his uncle owned a general store. After 2 years, well, he learned to speak English and he learned the business. While working there, he met the Wharf family, who were also from Alsace, where they had a general store in a place south called Wainima, California. And they convinced him to move here, to work in their store with their son Luis. My Achille was a hard worker, and soon he became a partner. And so the sign on the front door said, "Wolf and Levy." And then, just before his 22nd birthday, before he was even a citizen of the United States, he became postmaster of Wainima, California. Quite an accomplishment, n'est-ce pas?
Well, I think your husband set an example for Jewish merchants to become postmasters in Ventura County. My husband, of blessed memory, was postmaster of New Jerusalem, which later became El Rio. And his brother, Morris, he was postmaster of Santa Paula. Our husbands were very, very good businessmen.
Well, of course, you all know that most pioneers who came to Ventura County back in those days were farmers. But for hundreds of years in Europe, Jews were not allowed to own land, and so the men became merchants. And that is why Jewish men are such good businessmen.
So it's no coincidence that Jews own so many of the local shops all over the county. My husband and his two brothers all own their own stores. Jews open businesses in Ventura and other cities, like shoe stores, clothing stores, and general stores. Even saloons and liquor stores.
Well, yes, and did you know that one of the largest retail businesses in the year 1900 was owned by Achille's cousin, the Lehman brothers. It was a new concept called a department store. Oh, but I'm getting ahead of my story. Where were we?
You were telling us when you first came to California.
Oh, yes. Now, be patient. We are getting there. Well, in the year 1882, Achille decided it was time to return to France. Et pourquoi? To find a wife, of course. By this time, he was 28 years old and he needed a family in his new country. So he sold a part of the new general store that they had just opened in a place called Springville. Have you heard of that? He sold it to his cousin, Leon Lehman.
Isn't he one of the brothers you just mentioned?
Oh, yes. And then Leon became partners with Maurice, and it became Wolf and Lehman. Oh, Achille sold his part of the business in the new store for $50,000.
Boy, that was a fortune. Why did he need that much money?
Because in those days, it was the custom for a young Jewish man to engage the services of a matchmaker.
In Yiddish, we call it a shadchan. What is this?
Oh, that is the calling card, I think. Yes, that is the calling card that Achille used to announce himself to Paris society.
Well, it says, Monsieur Achille Levy de San Francisco, entrepreneur.
Well, he told me later he could not write Wainima on his calling card because no one in Paris would have heard of Wainima, and I had to agree with him. Oh, when the matchmaker introduced Achille to my parents, they were so impressed with the young man with a fuzzy mustache who'd made so much money in the land of opportunity.
Is this a picture of you at the time? And how old were you?
Well, actually, that's a picture of my friend, Molly Bard. Now, she bought that dress in Paris on her honeymoon, and I had one just like it, so I thought the picture was me my first time. Oh, well, I was just 18 years old when I met Achille, and you might have called me a bit of a socialite. I grew up in Paris, where my papa owned a factory. We had a very fine life with all of the modern conveniences and so many beautiful dresses to wear. But Achille convinced me that I would be happy in his new world of California. And so the papers were drawn up and the deal, as they say, was sealed.
Weren't your parents worried about sending you off to this new country with a stranger yet? What about bringing up children in this pioneer land?
Well, as it turned out, Achille and I were cousins, 42 times removed. So my name was already Lucy Levy. Oh, of course, my mama, she was worried that there would be no Jews or synagogues, but my grandpapa, he said, where there are 10 Jews, there will be a minion. So do not worry, they will find a way to carry on our Jewish traditions and faith.
Did you and Achille go on a honeymoon?
Well, we had a short honeymoon because he was anxious to get back to his new world of California. Oh, I had to say goodbye to my family, my friends, everything I knew in life. But I was excited to start my new life with my new husband. This picture of the steamship. It's the one we embarked on for New York. Well, the honeymoon, it was over as soon as that boat pulled out of port. Achille was so seasick. Night and day, I had to nurse that man.
Oh gosh. How long did this journey take you and Mr. Levy?
Well, when we finally arrived in New York, you know we weren't even halfway to our new home yet. There, we boarded a train for many, many days across this vast country. I was amazed that we were still in the same country.
Yes, I imagine if you had been on a train through Europe all those days, you would have passed through every country on the continent.
Well, in those days, the trains did not go all the way to Ventura County. So, when we got to Los Angeles, we had to take a stagecoach the rest of the way. Another new experience for one.
Well, here's a picture of the stagecoach station.
Well, at the beginning of the ride, they gave us these stagecoach rules. Look, I saved them all these years. Take a look.
Thank you. Okay. If the horses run off, sit still and stay calm. Don't try to jump because it may kill you. No liquor. Absolutely no liquor. But if you must drink, share the bottle. Now, if you sleep, schluffen, do not use fellow passengers as a pillow. And do not snore. Do not discuss religion, politics, or, God forbid, stagecoach robbery or accident.
Oh, you know, I was so exhausted after so many days of traveling. I paid no attention to those silly rules. I could not think about what might happen on a stagecoach ride. Oh, but as tired as I was so excited, you know, it was really quite an adventure.
I can't wait to hear about it.
Well, it was a horrible trip.
No doubt.
It was February, the rainy season, and the roads were muddy and rough. When we came upon a big mountain they called the Conejo Grave. And the stagecoach driver, he said it was too slippery for the horses to walk down that hill. And so he ordered everybody out of the stagecoach, including me in my best traveling outfit. Oh, we had to walk down that hill. It took 2 hours in the mud. Oh, my feet were killing me. Oh, and I had my new calfskin boots on too. Oh, but my arms hurt even more from holding up my heavy skirts out of the mud. My boots, they were ruined. What a way to make my grand entrance to Ventura County.
Well, what happened then?
Well, at the bottom of the hill, we were picked up by Achille's partner, Maurice, in what you call a spring wagon with his cousin, Leon Lennon. Well, it was a high climb for me to get up into this wagon, but with a sigh of relief to rest my weary legs and arms. It was very primitive, but we finally made it to Wainema. By this time it was dark and late, and I was so very tired. But I did finally get to my new home. I walked into it and I saw a little sitting room and a little kitchen and a little bedroom. And I collapsed into the first chair I found and I said, Achille, mon amour, you will have to show me the rest of the house tomorrow. And Achille said, Lucy, you have seen it. Mon Dieu, what had I gotten myself into? Well, I knew I was not in Paris anymore, but really, I never imagined this little house with 3 little rooms, no bath, no sink, no running water even. Well, I knew then that nothing about my life would ever be the same.
What a shock that must have been. I remember making a similar adjustment myself. For me, it was from Germany to El Rio.
Well, the next day, I found out something more about my new house. Achille and I were not the only ones living there. In those days, it was the custom to provide room and board to your store clerks. And, of course, there was his partner, Maurice. There were 6 of us living in that little house all together. C'est la vie.
Did you work with your husband in the general store?
Oh, no, I had my work cut out for me in that little house. Whew. I knew that I would have to adjust to my new primitive surroundings, but some improvements would have to be made. My first order of business was to add on, and then we made a nice little rose garden too outside. We were still newlyweds when I found out that Achille had a habit I could not stand. He loved to smoke cigars. I could not have that disgusting smell in my house. So it wasn't long before we added on a front porch outside.
I see you have a picture of the wharf in Wainema, when they called it Barb's Wharf.
Well, right around that time, Achille began to expand his business. You see, the farmers, they found out that to know Achille is to trust Achille. So, that wharf that you see there helped him to become what you call an agricultural broker. He helped the farmers to sell their crops from the Wainema wharf. And they were shipped off to markets all over the world.
Achille was certainly industrious.
Well, the business was so successful that in a couple of years, he was able to bring my brother Henri from Paris to become his bookkeeper. Oh, it was so wonderful to have another family member here. Well, Achille and Henri had all of the latest inventions in their office in Wainema. They were one of the first in the county to have a telephone, and they were the largest users all over Ventura County of the telegraph service. In fact, one year, Achille's telegraph bill was $241, which was more than all of Wainema combined.
Is this a picture of his new office on Main Street?
That is it, and I'm sitting out front in our new buggy wearing my new hat. The sign on the door said A. Levy, grain, wool, and produce.
You know, it's really interesting that even though Achille was not a farmer, it seems he played an important role in agriculture in this county. They used to call him the Bean King of Ventura County, didn't they?
Yes, that's right. Well, Achille knew that lima beans grow so well along the foggy weather along the coast. And so he bought a bunch of the bean seeds and he talked the farmers into trying them out.
And they became a very successful crop for all of Ventura County. And Achille found markets across the country, and as you mentioned, all over the world.
We
You know, I remember those days when you could travel around the county during harvest season and see those thresher machines and crews moving from ranch to ranch.
Well, we did not see much of Achille at home during harvest season. He would be out there working at the wharf for 12 to 14 hours a day, weighing the crops to go to market. You can see all the carts lined up in this picture.
So, how did Achille get the name of the Bean King?
Well, that was the day. In October 1890, there were, 22 railroad cars filled with 400 tons of lima beans. The letters on those railroad cars, well, they were 20 feet long.
It says lima beans from A. Levy, Hueneme, California. Achille had quite a flair for publicity.
Oh, yes. After that, Achille was hailed as the Bean King of Ventura County. Oh, my children, they heard that story and they said, well, Mama, then you must be the Bean Queen. But no.
And this? And what is
Oh,
this?
yes. Achille won this award. This was from 1893 at the Chicago World's Fair Exposition. It says right here, back here, best beans in the world, excellent in every way.
Here's a picture of the bean pagoda that was sent to Chicago with Ventura County beans.
Well, that bean pagoda was 24 feet high, and a New York newspaper called it one of the 7 wonders of the fair. So now you know why Ventura County is called the lima bean capital of the world.
What was life like for you at that time, Lucy?
Well, I was very busy raising the 4 children. We had 3 girls, Anna, Palmyra, and Julia, and of course my wonderful son, Joseph. There weren't very many Jewish families in Ventura County back then. So, as you know, it is the responsibility of the wife and mother to carry on the traditions and the faith and to make sure that the children are well educated.
How well I know. Look, I had 3 children myself, and it was a challenge because there was no formal Jewish organization. How did you manage all the way out there in Hueneme?
Well, the Episcopal minister used to call Achille and let him know when his Sunday school would be studying portions of the Old Testament, and then we would bring the children to Sunday school.
Right around that time, Mrs. Simon Windeman started a Jewish Sunday school for the children in Ventura.
Oh yes, but that was way too far for us to travel every week from Hueneme. We would have to cross the Santa Clara River. So, we received lessons in the mail from a rabbi in San Francisco. And then our children would study the lessons and then pass them on to another Jewish family.
Well, your grandfather was right about one thing. There were enough Jewish men in Ventura County to form a minyan. Do you remember the bris we all went to in 1895 for my nephew Herbert Cohn? Rabbi Abraham Blum came all the way from Los Angeles for that.
Oh yes, I remember. We used to observe the high holy days in each other's homes because there were no synagogues.
Lucy, your husband was best known as a banker. How did that happen?
Well, it all goes back to Achille's work with the farmers. You know, they trusted Achille so much that they started to ask him to keep some of their money, for safekeeping from the sale of their crops. Well, and then Achille would have money and he would loan them when they needed to buy more farming equipment or whatever they needed. Well, pretty soon, when the farmers went to buy something from another merchant in town, they would write a little note. and give it to the blacksmith or the baker, whatever. They owed 25 cents, $25, and they would say, here, you give this note to Achille Levy, and he will pay you because he keeps my money for me. And so you see, that is how the farmers started their own checking accounts. Oh, look, I have a newspaper article here I saved. I see.
Okay. The Bank of Hueneme opened today with $100,000. Mr. Thomas Bard is president and Mr. A. Levy is vice president. Mr. Levy was in charge of construction of the building. It is the first brick building in Hueneme and has a cement sidewalk in front of it.
Within a few years, Achille opened up his own bank called the Bank of A. Levy. Achille's bank became known as the bank that beans built.
As I recall, Mr. Levy was much respected for his work in the community as well.
Oh yes, my children, they were so proud of their papa. One day, Anna, our oldest, she had to write a composition for school about a famous citizen. So, of course, she chose her papa. Well, she listed in her composition all of her father's civic contributions, of which there were many. Let's see.
Member of the school board, the Hueneme Club to improve our town. Member of the Freemasons, chairman of the Matrimonial Bureau, you can imagine, to help find wives for some of the local bachelors. Delegate to the County Board of Supervisors, very impressive.
Yes, but this is what she was most proud of her papa for. Here's what she wrote. The Santa Clara River is very dangerous to cross. People, animals, and many items have been lost in the river due to quicksand and flooding. In 1888, 2 children were drowned when their family was trying to cross the river in a wagon. My papa fought hard to get a bridge built across the river. His hard work brought safety to the family of this county.
Also, the bridge connected all the cities in the northern part of the county to the south, making so much easier to travel about the county of Ventura. No? What about you, Lucy? What were your interests back then?
Well, my first community involvement outside my husband and family was through the Ventura County Fair.
Oh yes, I see this picture. I wonder if people nowadays know that the county fair started way back in 1874 and was held in Hueneme.
Right here, yes. Well, the main attraction back then was horse racing, which interested the men, but there were other things for women too. I got involved because of my interest in the culinary arts, and so I was in charge of all the cooking entries.
I bet there were lots and lots of entries with lima beans in them.
Oh, but of course, some wonderful gourmet recipes, not kosher, but interesting. Now, the most unusual was lima bean loaf with cracker crumbs and mustard pickles. Not my favorite.
Or mine. Well, I made one with matzo meal during Passover and called it lima bean kugel. My family loved it.
Well, I am partial to the classic succotage dish with a French twist. You add egg whites and cheese and bake it into a souffle. Voila!
Well, those were the days when the county was growing and times were changing.
Well, in Hueneme, they built the Seaside Hotel, which brought tourists to town and music programs to attend. Oh, I remember when crowds of people came for the exhibition of the first phonograph. Whew, what a sensation to hear music coming out of a machine.
Well, another machine that was becoming very popular was the bicycle.
Oh, I never tried it myself. And I did not encourage my girls either. I was worried their skirts would get caught up in those wheels, and bloomers hadn't caught on yet in Hueneme.
You were also active in the community, weren't you?
Oh yes, we started the Women's Improvement Club. We ladies undertook to improve our village with sidewalks and trees and fences, and we even raised money for the new town library. Years later, My friend, Mary Bard, donated the land and the money for this clubhouse that you see here, which is on Scott Street, just around the corner from where we are right now.
What were you going to tell me about this picture of Achille sitting so comfortably in this chair?
You know, sometimes that man was so involved in his work, I just had to speak my mind. Once, when I wanted to buy a chair that he didn't think we needed, when he was at work, I just went out and bought it. Well, Achille came home from work and he said, "Lucy, you have some explaining to do." And I told him that if he could afford to lose $3,000 on a shipment of wheat that was not insured when the boat burned down, and not even mention it to me, well, then I could go out and buy a chair and not mention it to him. And that was that. You see, by the way, how much he enjoyed that chair after all. There's that chair. I'll give you that chair. Oh, okay.
Lucy, you had such a good life in Wainema. What prompted you to move to Oxnard?
Well, you know, when the Oxnard brothers built that huge sugar beet factory, Achille said that Oxnard was the town of the future. Well, of course, the Bank of Lady was the first bank to be established in the sugar city. It was just a little wooden shack at the time, like all the other buildings in the new town.
Did you know that the Oxnard brothers wanted to build a factory on my husband's land in El Rio? He refused them.
Oh, mon Dieu, that was a good thing for you, because after these Oxnard brothers built this factory, Oxnard was not a town. Ooh, it was Wild West town, not a fit place for a respectable lady and a family. I would not live there. There were 17 saloons and shootings on Saturday nights. Well, I told Achille that he would just have to travel all the way from Wainema to Oxnard every day because I would not live there. And he did. He made the commute for 14 years.
Those were the days when they were moving all the buildings from all over the county to the new town of Oxnard for the factory workers to live in. My husband, Simon, refused to move his buildings there to that uncivilized place.
Well, in the year 1900, we embarked on a long trip to Europe, leaving my brother Henri in charge of the business. Oh, it was wonderful to see family again, and oh, so exciting when we saw the Paris exhibition and World Fair. Oh, La Tour Eiffel, 900 feet in the air. Oh, it was magnifique. Ah, there were pavilions from all over the world, and oh, the children, they loved the Ferris wheel. Of course, Achille enjoyed the Palais d'Electrique with thousands of electric lights. Oh, pardonnez-moi, I got carried away. Where were we?
But you were telling me about Oxnard, that rough and rowdy town.
Ah, yes. Well, we were gone almost a year. And when we returned home, quelle surprise! Wainema was practically a ghost town. But Oxnard, it was booming.
It was, and there was a school, there was a post office, there were churches and stores, and even a Masonic temple with cement sidewalks. All of this must have happened while you were away.
Well, yes, but the most interesting new building in town was the Bank of Oxnard, calling itself the Sugar Beet Bank, founded by Henry Oxnard. Well, Achille could not allow this. He built a proper brick building for the Bank of Lady. It was completed in 1902, and he spared no expense on construction or decoration.
I can see in the picture it was definitely the best building in town. And speaking of the growth of the new town, I remember reading that Leon Lehman was the first city treasurer when Oxnard became incorporated in 1903. Another fine example of Jewish leadership in city government.
Yes, that is right. Now, he made a promise to split the city's money between the two banks, the Bank of Oxnard and the Bank of Lady.
And I suppose as a banker, Achille had to be careful about who to trust.
Look at this picture of Achille at the cellar window. Oh, you know, he had a policy he called character credit when deciding whom to loan money to. Now, if he didn't know a farmer, well, he and his friend, Adolfo Camarillo, who was on the board of directors of the bank, well, they would get up early in the morning, and they would ride out to the farmer's ranch. Now, if the lights were on in the house that early in the morning, they knew that the farmer was serious about getting a good start on the day's work, and he would be able to repay the loan. Now, I told Achille he was crazy to get up that early in the morning. If he wanted to have go at a proper time for calling, you know, I would go with him, have tea with the wives, but oh no, he had to do things his own way.
Now, there's a really handsome picture of your son, Joseph.
Oh, merci. Joseph went to Stanford. Oh, and we were so proud of him when he returned home. He studied architecture, but Achille's dream came true when his son agreed to go and work with him in the bank. But Joseph did not want to live in sleepy little Guaynila. No, he was 21 years old, and he wanted to have a social life. Well, Oxnard was the new town with so much more for the young people to do. They would get together at that new plaza where they had a bandstand, and they would listen to music, and Joe also enjoyed the tennis courts and the bowling alley and even the opera house.
Oh yes, I remember the Opera House. We went there when Sarah Bernhardt and Harry Houdini played there on their way from Los Angeles to San Francisco. Simon wouldn't miss going to see Jewish performers when they came to town.
Well, Oxnard had become more civilized, and so I finally agreed to the move. Well, Achille found a big lot close to the bank, and Joseph used his architectural skills to design our new modern home. It has 12 rooms, and we've had many happy years there. There's even enough room for the chickens, which Achille insisted on having so he could have fresh eggs with breakfast every day. Soon afterwards, our cousins, the Lamans, built their house across the street, and then my brother Henri down the block.
Besides your husband's work in the community, you, Lucy, became known for your humanitarian efforts as well. And like other Jews, you and Achille connected with our heritage through charities and other good works.
Well, the children had grown up, and the girls started to get married. Anna married a William Waterman in 1902. He had been in business with Lehman, and they had a store called Lehman and Waterman. And then they moved to Los Angeles. And then you remember my daughter, Palmyra, she got married. That was in 1911.
And then, in 1912, I believe, Julia married John Milligan.
Well, yes, and they named our grandson after Achille, which made him so happy. So now I had plenty of time to devote to my own projects. Achille and I, we contributed to the Jewish Charities for Orphans in San Francisco and hospitals and the Federation of Jewish Charities in Los Angeles.
And weren't you also founding members of the Jewish Orphans Home in Los Angeles?
That was another project we were involved in.
In 1913, we all found out about a group of people who were trying to raise funds to help those afflicted with tuberculosis.
Achille and I made a contribution that helped them to make a down payment on 10 acres of land way out there in Duarte, California. And a year later, it became the Los Angeles Sanatorium, and it opened up with 31 patients.
And it became the City of Hope and is now at the forefront of the nation's leading medical and research institutions.
Oh, that is correct. Well, I have tried to help local people whenever I can also. You know, I've always remembered Achille's flight from his homeland as a young man. And so I try to help other immigrant families when they come here. I have a little bit of my own money, and so I make loans to families when I hear about them in need. I have a card here from one of them. Take a look.
It says, "Dear Mrs. Levy, when I left Austria, I only knew that I had to find a new home, but I never dreamed I would meet someone as generous as you. With your loan, I bought 400 acres of good land and planted walnuts, sugar beets, and lima beans. Thanks to you, my family is safe and happy, and my farm is successful. Very truly yours, Mike Vujovic.
Well, it was right around that time that I got involved with the Red Cross.
How did you get involved with that?
Well, when the Great War came, when it was over, actually, these men returned home. I was concerned. The soldiers came back with injuries, illnesses, and they had no money and no prospects. That could have been my boy, Joseph. My heart went out to them. But what could I do? Well, I joined the Red Cross, which was new in Ventura County at the time. And somehow I ended up on the board of directors. Well, we worked hard to help the soldiers to adjust to their post-war life. And now I must tell you the sad part of my story. One day, Ashir came home feeling sick. Well, we thought it must be the flu, so I called Dr. Livingston. The next day, he called my daughter Anna in Los Angeles, and he told her to bring the heart specialist. But it was too late for my beloved Ashir. Oh, here's another newspaper clipping that I saved. It's too sad for me to read it.
It says, February 24th, 1922. Today, Jewish funeral services were held for Abraham Ashir Levy of Oxnard in his home on D Street, officiated by Rabbi Sigmund Heck of Los Angeles. The funeral procession to the Ivy Law Cemetery was one of the longest in the county's history, forming a solid line of carriages and cars from the cemetery to downtown Oxnard. Thousands of residents from both sides of the river share their grief at his passing. His reputation for square dealing is as wide as the county, and there was no businessman more popular among both farmers and local townspeople.
Well, by that time, Joe was 35 years old, and he was ready to take over the bank. I am pleased to say that he followed his father's policies in lending, and he truly cares about people, both his employees and customers. He treats them like family, and they are always welcome in a home.
Well, the 1920s brought about so many changes to our world. We women got the right to vote in national elections.
Some women even cut their hair and shortened their hemlines. Not me, of course.
All of the ladies fell in love with Rudolph Valentino in that movie, The Chic.
Did you know that they filmed it right over there in Oxnard? Now they're calling Oxnard the new Hollywood. And the stars are coming and buying little cottages on the beach for $250. Oxnard is now advertised as the biggest little city on the coast, with a population of 4,000 people.
Oh. Let's see, tell me about this picture.
Oh, that was the big party that Joe and I went to with the farmers in Oxnard, celebrating the success of the sugar beet crop.
Wasn't that during Prohibition?
Oh, yes, but that didn't stop the merriment in Oxnard. There were 1,500 people there, drinking and feasting and doing the Charleston to a 6-piece band.
Oh, well. With that many people, I bet the bank was booming too.
Oh, well, of course. Now, here's a picture of Joe's masterpiece. So he got caught up in the euphoria of the 20s, too. He decided it was time for a new bank building, which, of course, he designed himself in the new Beaux-Arts style. Oh, my heart burst with pride when businessmen from all over the county and even the state came to see our new bank building at the grand opening.
Beautiful. I remember when the St. Francis Dam broke in 1928. You were a real hero then.
Mon Dieu, it was my busiest time ever. I remember when the Red Cross called me in the middle of the night because people were running for their lives from the flood. I will never forget that night.
What did you do?
Well, I knew that So many people, families all over Ventura County were in danger, and so I went door to door in my neighborhood in Oxnard, and I collected supplies for the victims of the disaster. Blankets, clothing, food, anything that people could spare for the victims. I have never seen such devastation.
In fact, you wrote down the statistics in this book. 12 billion gallons of water flooded. Over 500 people died. More than 1,000 homes destroyed. The towns of Saugus, Piru, Fillmore, and Santa Paula were all ruined.
Well, I hope that Ventura County does not ever see such a disaster again.
Lucy, how did the bank survive during the Great Depression?
Oh, how well I remember 1929, when that stock market crashed. Ooh. Well, on Black Tuesday, Joseph stayed calm while everyone else was in a panic.
Well, what about that day in 1933 when President Roosevelt ordered all the banks closed?
Well, that day, oh, the customers, they were lined up outside the bank when Joe got there. The tellers, they wanted to close up and go home. But my Joe, he thought about what his papa would do, and he came up with a solution. Well, he posted a close sign on the front door of the bank, and then he went inside and cashed a personal check. Then he went back outside through the back door, and he made personal loans to the families using our own family funds. They called this side door banking. And Joe managed to keep the bank operating and our customers happy during those Depression years. Achille would have been so proud of the way my Joseph handled this crisis.
Well, I heard some people speak about your work during the Depression also. Someone called you Oxnard's Angel of Mercy.
Well, I suppose that is because I like to help people out whenever I can. And you know, during the Depression, many people were hungry and homeless, and there's always work to do. I try to make sure that families are safe and children do not go hungry.
Well, Lucy, you've had a very interesting life.
Well, I have done what I can to make this world a better place. As a wife of 40 years, a mother and a grandmother. Well, and I have faith in the generations to come to carry on what Achille and I have started, and to keep our Jewish traditions safe for the future. Thank you, Minnie, for helping me to share my stories and my memories today with these wonderful people.
It's my pleasure.
Died in 1934 at the age of 71. During her lifetime, she had a profound influence on the lives of her husband and son, both professionally and personally. She adjusted to pioneer life with energy and grace, and her ongoing efforts in charitable and humanitarian causes enhanced the community. The Bank of A. Levy was family-owned for over 100 years through 4 generations. Many branches were established throughout Ventura County, but the 1927 building that Lucy was so proud of was the main headquarters. In 1995, when the bank was sold to First Interstate Bank, the Star Free Press had this to say about the sale. Ventura County may have grown to the point it needs the services of a financial giant. In its heart, however, it still harbors the dusty farming community that borrowed money for lima bean seeds from a good-hearted merchant who cared about his neighbors. So thank you for joining us. Connie, Diane, and I are docents at Heritage Square. We have a table in the back with some of our flyers, and Diane and Connie have other presentations, so we have a list of those. So thank you.
From Councilman Jim Hensley, Tom Figg, and Mayor Pro Tem John Sharkey, these pins from the city.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to give you, for your presentation, 3 DVDs done by Dorothy Ramirez, Ellen Brandt, and Bob Miranda. These have a lot of real treasures that you could put into something.